As I got another rhyme, another rhythm for y'all to listen. I'm never quitting on my mission, I'ma roll with what I'm giving. Got some ambition, this new edition, filling positions. Looking at the void in myself and feeling what's missing. Better watch the way you going, better go in the right direction. In the moment you stressing, but you gon' be counting blessings. And I know that for certain, keep on working, open curtains. Haters swerving, cause they ain't ready for your final version. Whoa. I'm never gonna give up, fall down, I just gotta get up, yeah. Cause this is my road. Let's camera action.
You're listening to the Tom Ficklin Show on WNHHLP 103.5 FM, your home for community radio.
Good morning, and welcome all to the Tom Ficklin Show. My name is Earl Bloodworth, and I think we have some exciting topics to discuss today. But first and foremost, I want to thank the team here, Harry Draws, and most importantly, Mr. Tom Ficklin for giving us the opportunity to utilize this platform. Today, we're going to be discussing clean slate legislation, what it is and who's for it, as well as an upcoming CT Pardons Day and pardons in general, and what they mean to the Connecticut community as it relates to full citizenship. So with that, we'll begin. I have one guest here, Dawn Grant Lockley from Connect. And Dawn, if you'd just like to introduce yourself and your role in Connect and let the good folks here know what Connect is, and then we'll get into a little bit of the discussion.
Hi, everyone. My name is Dawn Grant Lockley. Connect is congregations organized to form a new Connecticut. I am one of the tri-chairs, along with Phil Kent and Rodney Moore. We did a lot of work with Clean Slate that was passed that was signed January 2021.
The legislative session for 2021.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. We have another guest with us, Mr. Matt McDermott. If you'd just like to introduce yourself. Dawn was kind enough to let us know what Connect is and talk just a little bit about the Clean Slate legislation getting passed in January of 2021 during that legislative session.
Yeah, thank you for having me, Matt McDermott. I'm one of the organizers with Connect, and appreciate the invitation to join you and have Dawn with us too.
Awesome. So I'm going to throw in a couple of questions, some insights from my own regarding the Clean Slate legislation, and we'll just go from there. And either you guys that are on with us right now can answer. We've already answered one of my questions, which is what is Connect? So I appreciate that for those who may not be familiar with it. It is a multi-denominational organization that spans basically from Fairfield County to New Haven County, correct?
Yeah, that's right. 36 member congregations in both New Haven and Fairfield counties of a bunch of different denominations and faith backgrounds.
Awesome. So for those who may not know what Clean Slate legislation is or what it does, would you mind explaining a little bit what it is? From my experience, I know there was work began on this type of legislation way back in like 2006, 2007, but it didn't really, it kind of died down for whatever reason as things go in cycles, as we know. And then it picked back up in earnest around, from my knowledge, 2016, 2017, roughly the same period after Pennsylvania passed its Clean Slate legislation, which is similar but not the same as the Clean Slate legislation that was passed here.
Yeah, that's right. I can take a crack at that, and Dawn, please jump in as well. We first learned of the concept of Clean Slate legislation from the Pennsylvania example, which probably was started in terms of discussion and debate in 2016, 2017. It was finally passed in 2018. And so when we heard about the passage of it in Pennsylvania, we became intrigued, and our first efforts as Connect here in Connecticut to bring that idea to bear in Connecticut were in the fall of 2018, during the gubernatorial race when Ned Lamont was first a candidate for governor. We started asking him and the other candidates, would they support clean slate style legislation if they got elected? So that's when we began, and then first worked to try to get legislative support and get a bill introduced and testify before the Judiciary Committee and all of that in the 2019 legislative session.
Okay, I recall some of the large Zoom calls because, again, as the momentum was building in like 2020 and 2021, we were in the middle of the pandemic, and you guys were forging ahead with it. And I remember some of these large Zoom calls with like 2,000 people up there, and you guys got a lot of momentum. My question would be, what was the reasoning behind Connect taking that charge or feeling the need to handle and bear that responsibility to be a proponent of clean slate legislation?
I think it was hearing from people like Dawn about the way criminal records have impacted people. We had the biggest way we develop our issue agenda as an organization is by doing what we call listening campaigns or house meeting campaigns, where we're asking all the congregations to do small group conversations, small group discussions, where we invite people to tell us the kinds of problems and issues that are affecting them, their family, their loved ones, that they would like to see some change around. So we did that at the beginning of 2018. And in that winter, spring, we heard from people about all kinds of things. But one of the things that stood out and was new in terms of Connect was a lot of stories about the criminal justice system, and specifically stories about people who were hampered, their opportunities, options, housing, jobs, et cetera, were hampered by criminal records. So we formed a criminal legal reform team, started looking into what's going on in Connecticut, what have advocates and leaders done before us, and what could we build upon, and what's going on more broadly. And in that research process, we learned about what Pennsylvania had done. And so we took it on because we felt it was responsive to those types of stories and impacts we've been hearing from people in the congregations about.
Definitely.
And
the congregation is the community, right?
Yeah. And some of those same people who, had told us those stories came around the table and became part of the criminal legal team to launch the campaign and to push for the legislation eventually to get adopted. So it's sort of a very organic organizing process for us that we didn't know clean slate existed as a concept of criminal record expungement, automated criminal record expungement at the beginning of the process. But once we were in the process, and then we learned about, here's a policy legislative solution that's been done in another state that relates directly to some of the stories we've been hearing and the frustration people have been having. And we heard stories both of the, I'll say one more thing. We heard stories both of the way in which people were treated as second class because of their criminal record, many times decades and multiple decades in some cases after the fact.
Right.
We also heard stories about people who had tried hard multiple times to get through the state's Board of Pardons and Paroles to get a pardon, and how that had been for many people difficult, confusing,
tedious, daunting
process, and fickle. Right? Some people felt very much like their
fate resided in the whims of the BOPP or the Boards of Pardons and Paroles, depending on whether they ate breakfast that day or how they felt or whatever. No, exactly. I totally get it. And then you add in the fact that during the pandemic in June, I believe, June 2020, the whole process is moved to online, which I believe creates another barrier to folks applying. Dawn, I have a question for you, because I definitely want to hear from you and your experience, because in my work with folks with pardons or in trying to get folks fully employed so they can live their life and contribute, back to the community that they were reintegrating into, wherever that is in the state of Connecticut, I found some stories just harrowing. Like, I had work with get them employed, or I would, give them some information and they would get themselves employed and check in and say, hey, I got a job. It's great. Or, I'm starting this new career. That's awesome. And then, I'd hear back 2, 3, 4 weeks later, I guess, after the background check had come back. So in some cases, the background check comes back later after employment has already started, as opposed to getting it and saying, okay, we got your background check. We're going to let you know where we're going to employ you or not. These folks have been working for 2, 3 weeks, 4 weeks in some cases, and they get tapped on the shoulder. And it's like, hey, as much as we like you, your background check came back and we got to let you go. And I think that's very disappointing, considering that somebody has already served their time, their sentence, and now they're trying to come back into the community, be productive, and make better choices. And we're not affording, the society is not affording them that opportunity. I know this has been said many times and it's cliche, but it's like this population has a permanent scarlet letter.
Yes.
So yeah, Dawn, you want to talk about your experience as much as you're willing to, or what you want to let us know?
Absolutely. So my experience, in all honesty, is you never finished serving your time in Connecticut. I came home in 1998. I applied for jobs. I would get second interviews, and then I'd get a call saying, oh, I noticed that on the application you put that you have a criminal record. So there's no need to go any further, after I had already done the first interview and the second interview. I've applied for pardons 4 times. The first 2 times I was denied outright. Third time I got a piece of paper that says that I can be employed in Connecticut, which
Yeah, I remember that.
is useless.
The certification of employability, yeah, it's quite
Yes,
useless.
totally
But
useless.
that's a topic for another time.
And then the last time, which was after I got that certificate, I was denied again. I have served my time. I finished probation, parole. I went to school, graduated cum laude. I graduated from Columbia University. I got my, thank you. I got became a therapist. I became a licensed clinical social worker. I started my own private practice, and I still have a record. I'm still unable to get a pardon. Just for the fun of it, I applied for a job in August, and I've been called back numerous times, but it goes no further than that. So for me, clean slate won't clear my record, but knowing what I went through, it's very traumatic to have to every day wake up knowing that you're serving another day imprisoned, even if you're technically not behind the York gates.
Right.
I don't want to see other people go through that. It's not, I can't help me with it, but whatever I can do to help the next person avoid it is what I want to do. And that's what makes clean slate so important.
No, I totally agree. And both you and Matt can jump in on this. Matt, you and I, have coordinated on some efforts. We've talked. There has been a lot of fanfare around clean slate legislation. But prior to that, I remember one of the last big things that Connect had done, and we had Governor Ned Lamont there. You guys, put his feet to the fire and got him to agree to some concessions and make sure that this wasn't just going to be some legislation passed with no teeth. But it's now April 2024, and we've had 2 press conferences or more, and the legislation is not being implemented as it should be. I know, I guess there's roughly around between 8,000 and 13,000 folks that have had their record automatically expunged. Some of those being folks who were charged and arrested and sentenced with marijuana charges. The bulk of the clean slate legislation focuses around those with misdemeanors, and is it, and correct me if I'm wrong, is Class D, Class C felonies?
Class D and E felonies.
Class B
Yeah,
and
so
E felonies.
lower level felonies and misdemeanors, which you know, if anybody's been through the legislative process, you know, it's a process of compromise. We had pushed
Right.
for a stronger piece of legislation initially that would have
Absolutely.
included more people. Our version of clean slate. Now, Pennsylvania, in the meantime, since 2018, has adopted, I believe, 2 additional clean slate laws. So they're gradually expanding in Pennsylvania.
Right.
So they may have caught up with us, but
Mhm.
building off of Pennsylvania's first law from 2018 was misdemeanors only.
Wow. Okay.
And it was 10 years from your release from prison that those misdemeanors got cleared. So
Now,
our
with the state
legislation
of
in Connecticut,
Connecticut, with the state of Connecticut is 10 years from the release for the felonies and 7 years for misdemeanors. Is that correct?
it's 10 years from the date of conviction for the
Conviction.
felonies, 7 years from the date of conviction for misdemeanors. So whatever sentence you may or may not have served would be included in that waiting period. But as you said, it's just Class D and E felonies. So basically crimes that are punishable. The maximum sentence a judge could give you for a D felony is 5 years in prison. Doesn't mean you know, they may not give you 5 years, but the maximum they're able to give you is 5 years. So it's lower level felonies. And so that's why it doesn't capture someone like Dawn. It doesn't capture, frankly, a number of people that have been in that team at Connect, and our allies at ACLU and other places have records that won't be cleared by clean slate, but they've still fought for it because it's a step in the right direction.
No, I definitely agree with that. There's a legislator that I've worked with in the past that was up at the General Assembly, and one of the things that he told me or impressed upon me was that, like you just said about Pennsylvania expanding their statute, you can amend a bill that's been passed. You can amend a law that's been passed. You cannot amend a law that's not been passed. So in that frame, right, we are in a better situation. Would we have liked more? Would we have liked it expanded? Yes, of course we would. But we have what we have, and we're going to work with it. I know.
But to your point, we're unfortunately still fighting to get what we got passed implemented.
Right.
Which I think what you were trying to get to, and I don't want to shy away from that. We're very frustrated and angry, frankly, at this point, by the fact that the law, as Dawn said, the law was started in, you know, the law that got adopted was started in 2021. It was signed in June, I believe, of 2021 by the governor, with an implementation date of January 1st, 2023.
Correct.
So here we are sitting in third of the way through 2024. So it was only in like December of 2022 did we learn that there were difficulties implementing the first law. That led us to work with the governor's staff and the legislature again for what we have called a technical fix bill, so sort of cleaning up some definitions and clarifying some things from the 2021 law. That became another bill that was passed and signed this time in June of 2023. With the promise that by the end of 2023, the whole thing would get implemented. So much so that the governor came out to a press conference, I think you might have been at, Earl, right? At Community Baptist.
That was December of 2023.
December 2023, we're all celebrating it's about to happen.
Yeah.
And as you said accurately, the last data we have from the state was that only 13, and so in December they promised that 80,000 people would have their records erased by the end of January. Here we are in April, and the last data we have is just that 13,626 people's records have been erased. So we are way off and way slow from what was promised just in December, and celebrated in December. So we're very frustrated that the whole implementation has gone so slowly, and that what was promised just in December after so many go rounds is now not happening, or is now not on track. And there's very little transparency, very little clarity on exactly when the the rest of the
Yeah,
erasures will
I want
happen,
to get to that.
etc.
I want to get Phil Kent just join us. Phil, if you could just introduce yourself real quickly.
Good morning, all. My name is Phil Kent. I'm one of the chairs of the criminal legal reform team at Connect, and I'm happy to be with you this morning.
Thank you, Phil. Appreciate you joining us. So we're coming close on time here, but there are a couple of points I want to get to because you gave me a great segue in, Matt. You said that it was expected to be roughly 80,000 folks to have their record expunged, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So my understanding, in one of my other roles as being a chair for reentry and diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility on the Governor's Workforce Council, there are over 100,000 jobs that are open currently in the state of Connecticut that need filling. We have a huge population of folks in the reentry community that could possibly fill these jobs, provided that their record gets expunged. And then there's also, I mean, the 80,000 I think is an estimate and not a total estimate, because there are also folks that should be eligible, but it wouldn't happen automatically. So those folks need to know how to go about the process to get their records expunged through the clean slate legislation, but it just won't happen automatically. So you have that subset of the population as well. Now I'm wondering, how do we, I know, like you said, Matt, you're mad, I'm mad. There's a lot of people that are upset of the delay in this taking shape and being implemented. But how do we congregate and galvanize the community, one with an awareness, and then two with action and execution? Because in speaking with people in CBIA, you know, it's a lobbying group for employers. They need workers. The state needs workers. We have an ample amount of in the population from the reentry community that could fill a lot of these positions. I know you guys had a press conference a few weeks ago in March up at the state capitol, but I'm wondering, one, how could we work together with the greater community to make some things happen? My next guest that's going to be coming up, I'm going to be working with them on a Connecticut Pardons Day that we're going to do during the week of Juneteenth. So that's what we're going to be discussing. But we wholeheartedly would like to collaborate with Connect because I think clean slate legislation and absolute pardons go hand in hand. And I don't know that people know that there's a difference between the two.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, Earl. I mean, and we've been trying to make that point consistently, that while this is obviously, if clean slate, you know, gets fully implemented, we think it's more like, at the end of the day, about 120,000 people that would benefit. And then it becomes ongoing, right? This is
right.
The 120,000 is the backlog of people who are eligible now.
Right.
But as we talk about those 7 and 10 year timeframes, every month more and more people become eligible as their dates qualify by those waiting periods. So it's absolutely an underutilized, underemployed, unemployed, underemployed potential workforce for the state and for our business community. And we know from other research in other states that expungements, give people job opportunities for new jobs or for advancement in current jobs. Promotions and income jumps. In one Michigan study, it was 10 times the impact on income that a job training program was. So people earn $4,500 more per year 2 years after an expungement in Michigan, compared to $450 more if they just went through a job training program. So the power of this is big for individuals, and then collectively across the state for tens and hundreds of thousands of people. It's huge. It could be huge for our economy and for our business sector. And so I do think, I'm sorry, go ahead, Dawn.
I'm sorry. I just want to add to that if we remember, the marijuana, the cannabis law was passed in 2022, that legislative session, and implemented fully January 1st, 2023. So maybe the point needs to come away from it being good for Connecticut to it makes Connecticut money, because it seems that that's what
drives things.
Right.
I agree. And that's kind of the point I was getting to with discussing about CBIA and partnering with them. It makes Connecticut money. It provides a better tax base for Connecticut. It provides workers for employers. So that gets kind of to my point. One of the things that you were saying, and kind of the title of the show, is that just in that base number that you talked about, the 80,000, possibly up to 120,000, we have a bunch of folks, and Dawn, you're included in this, are folks that are not full citizens in the state of Connecticut. You don't have full citizenship.
Earl,
And
can I jump in on?
I'm sorry? Yeah, please.
Can I jump in with something?
Yes, please.
Thank you. One of the things that we've suggested is, the government's having trouble implementing this law, right? Why not bring in people who are eligible for clean slate, put them to work helping other people who are eligible for clean slate to get their records cleared so they can get back to work in those 100,000 jobs that the CBIA is talking about. And the other thing I would say is just, there are more people that can be brought to that table in terms of getting getting employers on board. There's the RBIJ, which I think is the Responsible Business Initiative for Justice, that's working to get employers on board. JP Morgan Chase has already come out, publicly in favor of working with people who have received their clean slate. There are other employers that we know of around the state, and we've worked with people like Garrett Sheehan at the New Haven Chamber of Commerce, and Mr. Andrewson at the Quinnipiac Chamber of Commerce, who are in favor of getting the word out on clean slate as well. So there's folks who are ready to work with employers and get people back to work. And I think that, as Matt mentioned, the benefits are visible, they're there. So it's just a matter of getting the word out, getting people on board, getting the government to fully implement.
No, I agree. And I think too, as Dawn started to allude to, is how you really frame it and what people are influenced and motivated by. And I think one thing that we can all agree is filling the tax coffers and putting people to work throughout the state and providing employers, a trained and eager, really eager workforce that are, looking to just live their life just like anybody else. I chalk it up to something that we did at the state capitol several times. I think starting in 2016, 2017, was we called it a day of dignity, and everybody should be treated with dignity. Your record should not preclude you from living a regular life after you served your sentence. As Dawn said, served your sentence, did parole, did probation. There's no reason, other than like what Dawn did, starting her own business. Entrepreneurship is another thing that is great. Some of these folks don't need to work for somebody else. They have the skill set to work for themselves. They just need to not be hampered or hindered by not having access to capital or, proper guidance with formulating a business plan. So on multiple fronts, there are avenues that should be available to the population to uplift themselves. And if we're not uplifting this community, then we're doing not only them a disservice, but we're also doing the state of Connecticut and the larger, broader community a disservice, I think. And I think we could do better. So I'm all aboard. Go ahead.
I would agree completely, Earl, and I would add maybe one other way that I, as an organizer, and a number of our clergy have thought about this, is that this is an opportunity, or we think of clean slate as a way for people who have criminal records individually to get full citizenship, to get dignity, to get redemption, to be kind of back into the fold of society in a full way. And that can be true. I think if we're honest, though, part of what this can be as well is redemption for us as a state, right? Just like so many states across the country, Connecticut bought in and participated fully in mass incarceration and the war on drugs and over policing and over punishing, particularly Black and brown communities across the state, and incarcerating people at insane rates, right? This country still incarcerates more people than any other country in the world. And though Connecticut has made reforms and the prison population has come down, without something like clean slate, people will live the rest of their lives with those records, and the impact will continue to linger. And that impact is a disparate impact that affects Black and brown people and Black and brown communities disproportionately. So if we want to renounce that racist legacy that Connecticut has and has participated in, and do right by people, not just individually, but broadly, we need clean slates. Connecticut needs clean slate to redeem itself from the sins it has committed against people in this systemic racist way. And so I think we all need the redemption, not just individuals with records. And so I would say anybody who's anxious to see this legislation fully implemented, anybody who's angry that it's taking so darn long, and to Dawn's point that, you know, if it involved money or if it involved a different constituency, we probably wouldn't be seeing this delay. I would encourage people to call Governor Lamont's office and ask, when is this going to get done? We're waiting. You promised this.
Not
you
just
signed
Governor
this.
Lamont's office, but your own. So, and that's one of the things that we were trying to do when we had the Day of Dignity up at the state capitol. I think initially we had maybe 280 people come that day and tell their story. And out of that 280 people, maybe 10% had been up to the state capitol before. So it's not just about reaching out to Governor Lamont. By all means, do so. But also your local legislatures, your city councilman or councilwoman, or alderman or alderwoman, whatever terminology you may use in your different cities. But everybody needs to be involved in this because it impacts everyone. And well said about redemption. I mean, Connecticut is in New England, and then it's often joked about it's the land of steady habits. But I wholeheartedly believe that we should not just be a second chance state in words only, but in deeds.
Amen.
Amen.
Joe, real quick, well, not real quick. I mean, we have some time. We did have another guest join us, and they'll be talking about what we're planning with Connecticut Pardons Day, which I said I definitely want to collaborate with Connect involved.
Absolutely.
Can you express to, and anybody can take this, Dawn, Phil, and Dawn, I know you said you applied for a pardon at least 4 times. Can you kind of delineate some of the differences between clean slate and also seeking a pardon? Because those are 2 different things. Some people may not understand that there's a difference.
So
and seeking an absolute pardon.
So clean slate is it's automatic, and it would be a full pardon granted, but you don't have to apply. Mm-hmm. Whereas going for an absolute pardon, you have to go through, back in the day, it was 21 pages. You pay $75 to the state of Connecticut to get a copy of your background check. You submit that, you get recommendations, you have to explain what happened, your story and why you deserve a pardon. And then you send it off, you hope. And even if you try to not get that hope going, like I did the second, third, and fourth time after the first denial, the amount of time it took to get it back, the longer it takes, the better it is. And you start, hey, maybe there's a chance. And then you get the letter and your heart starts beating and they say no. And that no equates to everything that you've done, just not good enough for us. So you need to sit here and continue your sentence.
Outside of the prison. Well, so a couple of things I want to get to. So for clean slate legislation, it only covers a certain amount of Class D and E felonies and then misdemeanors. So that is a whole swath of people who, if they're looking to get some type of pardon, that if they're looking to get their record expunged, they have to go for the absolute pardon because they're not covered under the legislation. That's one. If you're going for a pardon, you have to be 3 years away from any misdemeanors. This is sentence complete, no probation, no parole, whereas clean slate legislation is from conviction. And then it's 3 years from misdemeanors, 5 years from the felony. So those are two different kind of animals and understanding your eligibility. And then also with the clean slate legislation, it happens, it's supposed to happen automatically, but there's also a time frame where you might not be covered for it to happen automatically, and you have to apply through a certain process. So hopefully we can get all that information. I'm sorry.
I can flesh that out a little more for you, Earl, if you like. Yeah.
Yes.
So yeah, you're right. Clean slate is only gonna, it's not a full pardon for everything that you may have in your criminal record. It's gonna cover DE unclassified felonies, and then it's gonna cover all misdemeanors, except there are some exceptions, you know, for certain misdemeanors, especially related to gun violence or domestic violence type of offenses and other things. And of course, it doesn't cover C felony, B felony, and A level felonies, right? And so for those type of things, that's when you would have to go to the Board of Pardons if you're gonna look to get a pardon on those higher level offenses. The timeframes are also different, right? As you mentioned, at the Board of Pardons, you're looking at 3 years from the time of the misdemeanor and 5 years from the time of the felony. At the under clean slate, it's 7 years from the date of conviction on the misdemeanor, if it's eligible, and 10 years from the date of conviction for the eligible felonies. And I think that one of the big things that Dawn mentioned is how subjective the pardon process is, and how judgmental it can be and how destructive it can be if you've gone through this process, you've put everything into it, and then you get that letter denying your pardon. Whereas, you know, clean slate is not intended to pass judgment on a person again, right? That's already been done. And that person who's become eligible has stayed out of trouble, you know, for those 7 or 10 years, depending on what we're talking about, and tried to rebuild their life. And so clean slate is going to automatically, at least for offenses from the year 2000 forward, that's going to be automatic for most people. Unless something slips through the cracks, and then there's a process where they could file paperwork to try to get their to get their slate cleaned through the court system. For people who are prior to that January 1, 2000 cutoff, they're also going to have to file paperwork with the court system to have their record reviewed. So, you know, those are sort of the ins and outs. You know, like I said, there are some exceptions that people would have to get more familiar with to understand if they are eligible or not. And there's a website out there, which I think is live, which, Matt, do you have the exact, is it cleanslatect.org?
That's right.
Cleanslatect.org is designed to help people figure out if they are eligible. But of course, we have to get to that full implementation point before we can really, you know, tell people go and check, right? I mean, they go and check now, but we want to know the implementation is done, right? So people can go and check for sure.
The state also has a website, and just to be clear, while Phil is absolutely right that if your record, your conviction date is pre January 1, 2000, you do have to file a form. It is nothing like the Board of Pardons and Paroles, you know, full pardon application. It is 1 page long. And similarly, if you find that your record hasn't been cleared by clean slate and you believe it should have been, you can file an appeal form. That also is 1 page long. So it is paperwork, but it's nothing like the full-blown full pardon application.
Are there any charges for filing those forms of appeal?
The pre-2000 form has no charge. Currently the appeal form requires you to attach your state police record, which, as Dawn said, related to which is a $75 fee. We've been arguing to the governor's office, governor's staff, that that's unnecessary because that form is actually going directly back to the state police, the Department of Emergency Services and Public Protection that owns that database and controls that database. So there should be no need. no need for the person to pay $75 plus a credit card fee to pay for that. So we're trying to get that simplified and to become free, but that's a work in progress right now.
Okay, so guys and gal, if we were to have some last parting words for our audience out there, as it relates to full citizenship being denied to folks in the state of Connecticut and the lack of redemption for these folks and for ourselves, what would be your parting shots?
Talk to your legislators. Have them fight, put pressure on the government to get clean slate implemented.
So that means that we have to put pressure on our legislatures then?
Yeah.
Okay, you have to hold them accountable for the bill that's been passed already and should be implemented. I agree
Yes.
with that.
I think that's right. I think, you know, people are waiting to get back to work. They're waiting to get into stable housing. They're waiting to go back into higher education programs to improve their skills.
They're waiting to be full citizens.
They're waiting to be full citizens and everything else that comes with that. And, you know, we're going to have more things coming up in the future where we're going to continue to, you know, raise this issue and keep some pressure on. So people could certainly look to join us, especially if we're going to be up at the Capitol again. But, you know, even if you go and like Don said, talk to your local legislators, and you, Earl, too. Talk to your local legislators as well, because they have a role in this too.
Well, I appreciate that. Matt has my contact information, and feel free, Matt, to provide it to Phil and both Dawn. And I look forward to working with you and the rest of the Reform Committee to put pressure and bring more awareness around this issue for our folks that are not, that don't have the full citizenship that they should have after serving their time.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Earl.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you so much for having us on, Earl, and thank you for your good and hard work over many years on these issues around reentry in this community, and absolutely, let's keep collaborating.
Yes.
Definitely, this won't be the last conversation we have on this platform or others. So again, Matt, I'll be following up with you. Like I said, we're going to collab and do some stuff around CT Partners Day, which is going to be taking place Juneteenth, the week of Juneteenth. Hopefully folks can recognize that symbolism there. So
yeah,
absolutely. All right. Thank you so much.
All right, folks.
Thank you.
Brother Kennard Ray, are you there? You with us? Hello?
Yeah, I'm here. Let me get my technology right. Give me 1 second.
All right, that's cool. That's cool. I want to make sure your voice gets heard. So folks, while we're waiting for our brother to get, the technology right, you have questions about what we discuss, Connect has a very good website that you can hop on, or you can shoot questions to the Greater New Haven Reentry Roundtable, and that you can reach them at gnhrrt@gmail.com. You can go also to the state ctreentry.org site, which gives information on all the reentry roundtables, as well as other information impacting the population of those that have been incarcerated and those that haven't been incarcerated, because there are folks, quite truthfully, that haven't stepped foot in jail, but they nonetheless have a record because they went to court and were sentenced. So it's a wide population. But with that being said, Brother Kennard, let's kick it, man. How are you, sir? Thank you for joining us.
I'm doing well, Earl. I'm doing well. Rotate your phone to landscape. Okay.
There you
Here
go.
I am. Thank you, Harry. Thank you for the production cues. Coming from the back from Harry. I really appreciate you. But I'm doing well, Earl. How are you? Here to talk about
We're gonna
Connecticut
get right
Partners
into
Day.
it, man.
We got a little time.
Is limited. So what inspired you to host, and you along with your colleagues, to host a Partners Clinic during Juneteenth week? And how does that tie into the cannabis business?
Yeah, no, that's a great question to start off with. And I just wanted to say, leading off of the last conversation. I'm really happy to see that Matt, the folks from Connect, and others are still plugging away at getting people into their full citizenship. And what inspires Pardons Day overall is a part of that very fight. I mean, Earl, part of my history. We've spent a lot of time working together over the years on these same kinds
Part
of
of our history
issues.
just got recently connected in more ways than one.
Right, totally. So, um, you know, the way that CT Pardons Day was actually came about was Tiana Hercules, who is kind of like the brain and the motor of this whole thing right now. I went to one of her pardons clinics. I think it was two months ago, and I just saw how well she conducted a pardons clinic. I saw the appeal, the number of people who came out, and I thought about how many more people could be impacted if we spread it statewide. Because the one thing that I want to take from the last call, I guess it was it's the only thing that I would refute is people are waiting, but the thing we have to make sure people understand is they don't have to wait, right? And so part of my history and part of my involvement, even before getting to being a licensed cannabis retailer and cultivator here in the state of Connecticut, is being someone who got involved politically. um Many of the things that I've done have been on the criminal justice reform side, on the social justice impact side, and that all was done with a criminal record, right? Actually, I'm currently in the process of getting my pardon now, but I never waited. And so I would not advise any person ever to wait. I think that organizations like Connect are a big piece of what happens and what moves the needle forward, but the bigger piece are the actual impacted people, the affected people and their families. And so, just to bring it full circle, my involvement with Connecticut Pardons Day, as well as my involvement in this space overall, has been driven by me being personally impacted, my community being personally impacted. I am literally walking out of a court. Harry, I know you told me to change the landscape, but I'll just do this, right? Because I didn't even expect, I didn't know what time it would happen, but today, going with a friend to turn himself in to to a prison sentence, to a 5.5 year prison sentence. And I mean, I guess all I could say is doing this thing is timely. I've seen the results of people you know tapping into full citizenship, tapping into everything that's available to them to achieve full citizenship. Of course, I didn't coin the term, but I definitely helped popularize that term, full citizenship, here in the state.
Good.
And it's really
Your brother
because of,
James.
yeah, for sure, it's really because of um my personal history and my how I've been impacted by it all. And so the driver behind it all is, one, seeing Tiana's clinic, going to Tiana's clinic and seeing how well she did it, Lady Jane. Two, being personally impacted. And three, how cannabis comes into it is, right now I'm a licensed cannabis retailer and cultivator here in the state of Connecticut. um Actually am a partner in 3 retail locations right now with Fine Federal. And a part of, as a part of our social equity plans, each company that has equity joint venture or who entered the lottery as a social equity partner has to have ways they're mandated uh, in serving communities who have been impacted and affected by the war on drugs. And I saw that Tiana had taken the pardon side of it and done it the best. So I wanted to be a part of that and expand it, right? And to make sure that we're not just touching the people that we're mandated to touch, but we touch as many people as possible. We get as many people as possible introduced into what it's like, you know, to have a shot at your full citizenship.
All right, so we got about 1 minute. I got one last question I want to get in. I had many more, but we'll come back. This won't be the last time we talk. What message do you hope to send to policymakers and the public through your Pardons Clinic initiative?
Wow, that's a good one. Another good one. I mean, it's pretty clear. We have people, a workforce, while Connecticut is doing better and better each and every day, we have people essentially on the bench ready to get in the game. And so together, partner with you, Earl, with, you know, invested stakeholders across the state, we, along with business groups such as the CBIA, labor groups such as 1199, and right, like we can come together to make sure that those folks that are on the bench are put back into the game. People are put to work that want to work, and they're not caught up by barriers from the past, you know, to prevent their future, prevent the progress of their future.
Well, thank you. I think that's going to be wrapping it up. With that being said, what's one parting shot that you have out to the public that you'd like to know? And it could be anything regarding this, the business, full citizenship, the documentary series you start, anything you want to talk about real quick, brother.
Yeah, people, places, and things. It's all about people, places, and things. I think the more that we're able to connect with each other through positive interactions and activities, the more that we can move each other to greater heights, greater places, and on to greater things. I just truly believe it. Only quality people. And so and everyone has great qualities in them. And if we bring out the best in each of us, we get the best out of all of us. And Harry says 1 minute.
There you go.
All right.
And Harry's giving us the rap sign. I'll be in touch with you, sir.
Thank you, Earl. I really appreciate the time. Thank Tom for me. Obviously, thank Harry. He's been holding it down on this show for quite some time, and all the shows up there. So I really appreciate y'all doing this. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
All right, sir. Have a good day.
All right, peace.
As I got another rhyme, another rhythm for y'all to listen. I'm never quitting on my mission. I'ma roll with what I'm giving. Got some ambition, this new edition, filling positions. Looking at the void in myself and feeling what's missing. Better watch the way you going, better go in the right direction. In the moment you stressing, but you gon' be counting blessings. And I know that for certain. Keep on working, open curtains, haters swerving, cause they ain't ready for your final version. Whoa. I'm never gonna give up. Fall down, I just gotta get up, yeah. Cause this is my road.
You're listening to the Tom Ficklin Show on WNHHLP 103.5 SM, your home.